Yo, what is up guys? It's your boy Irina and welcome back to another exciting video where today I'm going to start off with a little discussion that I promise you is very much related to what we're going to be talking about today. So, I am not a fan of TikTok. I hope this is not like a super controversial thing, but I'm personally just not a big fan of it. It does have to do with, Chinese government, taking all of your personal information. But that's just communist countries. That's just what they do. Well, aside from that, I'm also just not a big fan of the content on there. It doesn't have to do with the content creators. I'm sure a lot of them are nice people, but I'm just not a fan of that kind of short form content. I know a lot of it's on YouTube, but at least YouTube doesn't steal your data. Now, I kind of thought that I would just never really be a fan of what was on TikTok until I found one day a little series on there. Now, I don't have a TikTok account. I never made one because, well, Chinese government stealing your data thing. And so I never ever go on TikTok. But then I was reading this little fanfic on AO3, and this fanfic, I think is called Project SEKAI Colorful Stage, What Do You Mean, or SEKAI, or something like that. I firstly think it's pretty good. Unfortunately, it's discontinued, which is a bit sad. But from what I've read, I think it's pretty good. And it was actually inspired by this series on TikTok, the series on TikTok that we're going to be talking about today. And this series is known as the Project SEKAI Parasite AU. Now, this isn't going to be like an infection AU, like not like one of those zombie apocalypse things where if you get bitten or something, then you like become infected. No, it's this parasite actually has to go into you. I know that sounds weird, but it's got to go into you in order to infect you. So if you get bitten or something, or if you get scratched or whatever, you're not infected. If they actually kill you, not infected, but they have to go inside of you in order for you to become like the parasite's host. So that's the sort of series that we're going to be talking about today. And let me tell you, this is an incredible series in my opinion. There's been a lot of effort put into it. It is very similar to a lot of those videos that you see that are kind of like those trendy ones, similar to that, but not really. There's a lot of originality here, which I really like. While if I touch a spider, that was gonna be a bit scary. I'm in the basement right now, by the way. There are a lot of spiders down there, but I'm getting off topic. So it's really original while also still being based off of and abiding by the rules of the Project SEKAI universe. But I know I'm ranting, and it is 3 minutes into the video, so let's just start off with our first video here. This one has to do with Akito and Toya. So, judging by the video, we have Toya telling Akito to look up at the stars in the night sky and asking him what he feels and what he thinks, as well as asking if it's cold outside. And then we see the image of a heart. Now, we have a lot of limited knowledge here, so we can assume that the heart probably belongs to Akito. We then have the same thing repeat, except Toya now has his face is covered by this image of a moving eye. Really creepy. I know it's a bit cliche, but I like it. I like it, okay? It's also has to be cliche. Cliches happen for a reason, And then we see the image of an arm. And this arm, again, probably belongs to Akito. But due to the limited due to the limited information we have, that's kind of all we have so far. Then we have our second video. This one has to do with Saki and Shiho. Okay, so we got a lot of information from this, and there is in the description of the video, there is like this little code, and the code, if you decipher it, it reads, "You told me to hide. Why did I listen to you? Your screams went on until the hot burning tar consumed your body entirely. I feel like I can still see you sometimes. Your hair falling off, your eyes melting from your socket, your skin getting blisters and burns as it bubbled like hot soup. That wasn't Miku, that was something else. I'm sorry, Ichika. I'm sorry, Honami. I'm sorry, Shiho. I wish I could have done more. I should have been the one burning in that." And then it kind of gets a bit corrupted. The translator who did in the comments, I credit it to them. It wasn't perfect. Maybe they made some mistakes, but overall, we got a lot of information from that. So props to them. I think they did a really good job, and thank you to that person. So this is kind of different from we're kind of leaving the whole Akitoya thing. So this video is a lot. We have Saki, reminiscing on like talking about how she hopes she can bring everyone back, and she's kind of blaming herself for a lot of stuff. And then she asks, "What do you think, Shiho?" And then we see her burning corpse, and I think we have maybe she's going a bit insane from the guilt. She might be losing her sanity and her cool a bit, which is understandable after all. It seems like all of her friends are basically dead, and she's basically talking to the corpse of her friend. I think anyone would be going a bit cuckoo in that scenario. And from what we can tell, Shiho was possibly killed by someone kind of cosplaying as Miku, perhaps Kaunka, who's like a fanloid who cosplays as Miku. She's basically like an alien, not an alien, but like a skeleton creature that's cosplaying as Miku. Perhaps that's it. But now I of course have foresight, so I know everything that's happening in the series. I'm just having to put the pieces together. So all I will say is it's more original than that. It's not actually Kaunka. And of course, it's a Parasite AU, so you have to keep that in mind. All right, so our next video focuses on Shizuku. Oh wow, that was certainly a video. So we have Shizuku saying that she feels fantastic and that you'll feel fantastic. So we could probably imagine that she's currently being the host of a Parasite. And then we see her mutilated body. That is horrific. And then we have text on screen that reads, "Such a sweet song. You don't need these anymore. Thank you. I can finally look pretty." And we have what appears to be a creature's face poking out of her face, as well as her eye lighting up. So now we know that she is being infested by this parasite. Right. Now that, in my opinion, is definitely one of the scarier ones, in my opinion. Or at least the more unsettling ones. The ones that kind of stick with you a bit more. And I can say the same for our next one, which again has to do with Akito and Toya.
そのためにも お前らを頼らせてもらうぞ。
All right, so again, really, really freaky. It feels a lot like Toya is blaming Akito here for some reason, which is a bit crazy because I don't really know what Akito did. And then his neck snaps, which is pretty freaky. And if we actually translate what Akito says in the beginning, just checking to see if I'm still recording, I am. We get, so from now on, I'll be relying on you for that purpose too. And again, decoding that description for the video, we get, hello, Akito? I got your messages. Where are you? My body hurts. It hurts so much. It's so dark here. I see a light in the distance. Huh? Was that operating table always there? So we could tell from this that Akito potentially did something to Toya, but we don't know what. But if we relate back to our original video here, maybe the heart and arm is from Toya, and Akito is kind of feeling guilt and kind of maybe hallucinating a bit about what he's done. Perhaps Akito's infested by a parasite? Is Toya the parasite? Who knows? All right, we got our next video here. Let's check it out.
神山高校と宮駅坂女子校の生徒19人が数ヶ月前から行方不明になっている。当局は19人全員が死亡した可能性があると発表したが、犠牲者の家族はまだ子供たちが生きているかもしれないという希望にしがみついている。行方不明の10代の生徒たちに関する情報をお持ちの方は、下記までご連絡ください。
All right, so this one is where you can definitely see the quality shine a lot more. Not to say that the other ones weren't high quality, and bro, the ending of the last video, if that's not quality, I don't know what is. But this is clearly where we start peaking a bit because, again, this quality is great. We have Kade talking to Mafiu, trying to encourage her while Mafiu is kind of starting to like maybe give up a bit. And if we notice Kanade's design, she has wires poking out of her neck. That's a bit creepy. perhaps she's infected by parasite or infested by parasite. But then we got Mafia glitching out here, and we can see her design that, like, number one, she's looking away from Kanade, but in her chippy sprite over here, we can see she's in a hospital gown. There's a TV poking out of her stomach. And if we go back to the last video, Toya mentioned he mentioned like a hospital bed. So perhaps we're kind of getting back to that. So perhaps Akito's kind of doing something to all these people. And then we got missing posters. We got Ichika, Saki, Honami, Shiho, Minori, Haruka, Eri, Shizuku, Kohane, Anne, Akito, Toya, Tsukasa, Emu, Nene, Rui, Kanade, Matthew, and Mizuki. But you might be thinking, where's Enna? We don't have an answer for that. So, we can only assume that there's a lot of pieces of the puzzle we don't know, which I think is pretty evident. Okay, so we have 2 videos left. This first one is certainly something. Right, so let's talk about this. So the video starts off with Tsukasa talking to Rui. He's saying, "Hello, it's been a while. I missed you all so much. Rui, I know you can hear me. It's me, Tsukasa. Don't you trust me? Please? It hurts so much. I know it's too late to save Emu, but you can still save me. Come, take my place. I don't want to be in agony anymore. It's suffering. Are you just going to let me suffer? I know you want this to be over already. I do too. Let's make this quick. Come, quickly. Take my place. Replace me, please. I'm begging you. Just die already so I can be reborn." And then Rui wakes up from his dream. It's clear that he feels a lot of guilt, and also his head is bandaged up a lot. There's a lot of blood on the bandages, especially around his jaw area. He could potentially be missing his jaw, or got dislocated, or a lot of other crazy stuff. He then walks over to his journal, where we find a cipher. I couldn't decode it. If any of you know how to decode that, please let me know. I'm very confused. I'm a rookie at this. I'm a beginner. I don't know how to decode this, okay? But we do know that whatever that says, it kind of messed with Rui a bit because his veins start showing. I think that's more just a stylistic choice, though. But anyways, we now move on to my favorite of these videos. My favorite, which is most likely biased because I love the Bad Squad, okay? I'm sorry. I just do. Okay, so let's break this down a bit. First off, we have Akito walking around a bit. His objective is to meet with Toya because he interacts with his mom, who tells him to have a good day. And I know this is minor and doesn't really affect the story that much, but it's nice to see, a secondary characters make an appearance in here. I like it, even if it is Aki Mom or Mrs. Shinonome. I just think it's cool. He then walks around a bit throughout his house. We see him enter the bathroom a bit. He interacts with his door, but doesn't want to really go in there. He interacts with his parents' room, but he doesn't want to go in there. And then he's at his sister's door, says he doesn't want to really go in there. And then he meets up with Toya at their usual spot, but he's not there. So he goes and talks to Anne and Kohane, who say that they haven't seen Toya. But then we get to see a missing poster. It says it's a person on there looks familiar, and it's revealed it's Toya's missing poster. No! So, apparently Toya has gone missing since last night, and no one knows where he is. Which is pretty odd. Yeah. And then he hears a scream come from his sister's room. He goes to check it out. It's Toya! Eating his sister! And it's clear that Toya's already been affected with a parasite. Since there's something interesting going on his neck. And his chest. There's something in his chest. Don't even has teeth. I think it's the parasite. Alright. And then Akito ends up getting his finger bitten off when he tries to confront the beast. That is now Toya, apparently. And so he ends up accidentally, he tries to call for help, but ends up accidentally, I think, clicking on Untitled, or Untitled automatically activates. And he's now trapped in a twisted version of the Street Sekai. And it looks like he recognizes the Street Sekai, or... because Saki, again, in the second video we mentioned, or we talked about, she said that the creature wasn't Miku, so most likely they already know about Sekai and have entered their Sekais before, but now something's changed, something's different, something happened. Alright, and that is our last video. So let's go over, the lore! Alright, so the Parasite AU mainly takes place in the Sekais, or at least the newer warped versions of them. The main premise is the survivors trying to escape the merged Sekai alive. Sorry, I'm burping a lot. We just did it again. Oh, that's something. So they're trying to escape the merged Sekais alive without getting killed. However, the more the survivors stay there, the more insane and crazy they get, with their mental health slowly deteriorating. The different Sekais can also randomly start to clash into each other, causing the survivors to be teleported into different Sekais away from their base, however that really happens. The new Sekais inside the merged Sekai. So we have the new warped remains of the school Sekai, the science lab. The science lab consists of mainly human experiments. Basically, the parasites trying to find out how humans work. It looks like a regular science lab, but more worn down and with green glowing tubes lining the walls. There's also several operating tables, equipment, and torture devices there. This place isn't used as much anymore, but that doesn't mean that there isn't something lurking around here. Alright, so, you know how, Toya mentioned an operating table and Mafiu was in, like, hospital garb? And actually, when you check out, Toya's design here, isn't he also kind of maybe wearing something that resembles hospital garb? So it's clear that they were taken into what I'm guessing is the science lab. They were taken to the science lab and something happened to them, causing them to be infected by the parasites, or infested by them, I should say more appropriately. Anyways, now we have what remains of the stage Sekai, the gateway. This is the only way the survivors can actually escape. However, it barely appears and it mostly glitches out of existence. Not much is known about this place, other than the fact that it's the only way to leave. We have the remains of the street Sekai, the abandoned alleyway / cafe, which we saw in the last video. The place that started it all. This is also where the survivors' base is located, since the parasites have a harder time getting here due to the cramped spaces. The cafe also spawns random food, which the survivors can eat. However, the food supplies has been getting really low recently. Alright. And there's remains of the Wonderland Sekai, the circus grounds. The circus grounds is one of the most riskiest places a survivor can go to. Not only is it very close to the hive, but it's also lined with traps. Host Tsukasa usually resides here, feasting on any unfortunate survivors that get caught in his web. Then we finally have the remains of the empty Sekai, the hive / nursery. The hive is where almost all the parasites reside and reproduce. Kaido usually guards the line between the circus grounds and hive, making sure no survivors get in without getting crushed first. Although it may appear empty, it's underground where all the parasites lay dormant. The nursery is filled with giant chrysalises, inside them having the remains of different victims and a parasite growing inside them. So something to note, when they talked about Tsukasa, who we can assume is a host, they referred to him as Host Tsukasa. However, Kaido, who might also be based on the limited knowledge we have, we can assume he's a host, but he's only referred to as Kaido. So, are the virtual singers the parasites? Ooh, maybe. Then there's the chrysalis explanation. The chrysalis is a small mechanical piece of equipment that's normally attached onto the neck of the victim. People who have a chrysalis attached will experience muscle cramps, headaches, nausea, vomiting, the vomit being just living wires that act like worms, and having their life force slowly deteriorate since it instead goes to a parasite. Once victims start to feel weaker, they start to get either really aggressive or very depressed. The process of removing the chrysalis is very difficult. If not removed correctly, it could end up killing the victim and cause a parasite to be born earlier than expected. In the worst case scenario, it takes about 9 months for the parasite to be fully born, and as it slowly grows, it crushes the victim's internal organs to make room for it to grow. That's a bit, brutal. And finally, no, you cannot bang the parasites or hosts. You know who I'm talking about. They do not have holes or any of that kind of shit, and they're not in any way interested in you. The comments are funny, but this is too much. Just thought I'd put that in there for more context. So now let's move on to the survivors. Starting off, we have Saki. Rui made her spear. She was told to hide by Shiho. She managed to survive, but Ichika and Shiho weren't so lucky, and spends a lot of time with Honami to take care of her. Saki has a spear for her weapon. Then there's Honami, who also has a chrysalis in her neck, which is not good. She was taken along with Eri, and they both managed to get away from the hive, but chrysalis is slowly draining her life. Honami has the pipe. Then there's Eri, who got her eye and arms removed from previous attempts to escape the hive with Honami, until they eventually managed to get away. Normally talks as if Enna and the rest of Mormor Jump were still there, and she's still not sure how they all managed to live this long, so she could potentially be in denial. Eri got an axe. Then there's Akito, who got his finger eaten by host Toya when he was trying to save Enna. Normally very aggressive, and barely eats just to save food for the others. And Akito has his baseball bat. Then there's Nene, who has a chrysalis inserted in his neck. He feels guilty for not being able to save Emu and Tsukasa in time, and is slowly going insane. Nene uses her gun, and judging by the pronouns, we can assume that this version of Nene either uses masculine pronouns or has been gender bent, which I don't mind. I'm personally not a big fan of when people use their headcanons in stories like this, but I don't mind. I think it's interesting to see. Then there's Rui, who got his jaw ripped off by Luca. Akito and Kanade tried their best to put it back on. Keeps a journal to write his thoughts and information, and he can't eat or speak, and he eats through a feeding tube. Rui uses his mallet. Then there's Kanade, who almost became a host. Akito saved her in time. Barely fights, as she's normally the medic, and holds on to hope that they'll one day escape. And Kanade uses a wrench. And now it does confirm that she almost became a host, but was saved. So those wires are possibly the remains of the what remains of the chrysalis, more just the dead wirings that act like worms. But they're no longer really a threat, so she is okay. That's good. And now we move on to the parasites, who are the virtual singers. First one being Miku, who has sharp blades for arms. It usually leaves the hive to catch any survivors. The antenna on its head sends signals to other parasites. Their old host was Ichika, and their new concurrent host is Tsukasa. Rin can swap body parts with Len, however it mostly takes Len's arms. It can skitter up the walls and ceilings, and it mainly thrives in the dark. And their old host was Shizuku. So we can confirm that the face poking out of her face, or Shizuku's face, was Rin. Then we have Len, the first one to get a host. It can mimic the voices of others, however it comes out slightly distorted. It can swap body parts with Rin, however Rin always steals its arms. And their old host was Toya. So Toya was the first to be infested by Len. That's what the thing that was poking out of its stomach. And I have a theory that the voice, or the Akito that was heard, you can hear it's a bit distorted. We can maybe confirm that was Len luring Toya into a trap, as Toya stated that he thought that he got Akito's message, but it seemed like he was tricked, and there was a hospital bed. That hospital bed could be from the science lab, so we can maybe conclude from this that Len lured Toya into Sekai, and then he ended up in the in what remains of the school SEKAI, the science lab, and he ends up getting infected there. So that's interesting. That's an interesting theory that I think could be true. Then we have Luca, who is in charge of the nursery in the hive. It created the chrysalis as well. Whenever it does attack, it leaves its victims in horrible condition, and it can move around quickly. And her current host is Matthew. Then there's Mako, the smartest of the parasites, usually doesn't leave the hive. It uses its host to manipulate and lure in victims, can attach itself to anything technological and corrupt it. And her current host is Anne. And finally, there's Kaido. So it moves slow, but its long and big limbs can crush victims in an instant. Came out of a chrysalis, poor Mizuki. It normally stays around the hive, guarding its entrance. And he doesn't have a host yet. I got this from a comment. It's that the creator of the series made on their TikTok, on this TikTok video, that Kaido can and actually any of the parasites can detach their limbs and can only take what they need so that they can infest the host without destroying the host body. And Kaido especially has to do this because he's so big, which also we have to refer to that poor Mizuki line. I think it's very clear that Mizuki was infested with this chrysalis. Kaido came out and she unfortunately went kaboom. She exploded. That's have fun sleeping tonight. And you'll especially have fun sleeping after seeing this. We're moving on to the hosts. Host Ichika, Miku's first host, leaves a trail of oil on the ground and moves pretty slow, and her limbs can stretch long enough to grab you. Host Shizuku normally stays under furniture and drags her victims down with her, always on the ground and wanting to look pretty. Host Anne, she looks like a regular survivor, blends in with the survivors in order to get information, and Mako can attach herself onto the host's neck brace. Then there's host Toya, the first one to become a host. Hot tar drips from his face, and he will always know where you are. Now, something to mention about the tar. It was stated in what was decoded from our second video is that Shiho was burned with tar and ended up melted to death with that tar. So it can be assumed that host Toya was the one that killed Shiho. That's pretty grim. Host Tsukasa, Miku's recent host. Luca got hungry, so it ate his head, arms, and legs. Acts like a spider, which by climbing up walls and creating a web for himself and to trap his victims. Host Matthew, she runs freakishly fast, is spared to hide, then try to outrun her, and she is a lot more aggressive than regular parasite Luca. And finally have some images. We have what I guess is Toya being infested by the Len parasite. Akito crying. I don't know where this came from. Also note that there's blood on him. So it can't be when he discovered Toya eating Enna. So I don't really know where to place this in the timeline. Moving on, we have host Toya eating Enna. So we can conclude that the heart and arm belonged to host Enna. I mean, not host Enna, just regular Enna. This also explains why she wasn't one of the missing posters, because her body stayed in the actual the normal human world. So they when their parents got back, they would have discovered her mutilated body, and she wouldn't be missing, just confirmed dead. Then we have Kanade with the wires that are on her, because she was almost fully infested by a parasite, but was saved by Akito. Now that's just from remains. And then we have host Tsukasa prior to his head and arm and other body parts being eaten off by Luca. And also something we should note is the spider coming out of Tsukasa, so that could just be one of host Tsukasa's abilities. Then we have Nene, who is infected by parasite, or infected by the chrysalis. Now we have Nene going insane, wanting to put Rui out of his misery. And then we just have Rui and his dislocated jaw, maybe trying to ask or get Akito and Kanade to put it back on. We have Shiho's corpse. Her death was by burning, and her body later on completely melted, leaving only the remains that we see in the second video. And that's that. Something funny I want to note is one person in the comments made a headcanon about Len, how Rin always takes his arms, and they said that perhaps the parasite Len can regenerate his arms, so he is constantly taking his arms just as a pile of arms, and Len just keeps on regenerating. And it was acknowledged by the creator of the series as a nice thought, so I'll refer to that as pseudo-canon. So finally, what is going on? What is the full order of events? So here's my timeline. So we first have Parasite Len baited Toya into coming into SEKAI. He ended up finding himself in the science lab and was infested by Len, becoming host Toya. And Akito and the other members of the Bad Squad were unable to find him until Akito returns home. Host Toya kills Enna, and he finds Host Toya, and is trapping himself in his bathroom trying to call for help until he ends up being teleported into SEKAI. And I guess that's when everyone else ended up being teleported into SEKAI. Honami ended up being trapped with Eri, possibly in the science lab. They tried to escape multiple times with Eri as punishment, having her eye and arm removed until they eventually made it out. Saki was probably with the other members of Leonid, and during that time she was in there, Rui made her spear. Saki was told to hide by Shiho before Shiho ended up dying due to host Toya. Saki was lucky and was able to survive, but not before experiencing a lot of guilt, and Ichika ended up as a host for Miku. Most likely, Eri and Honami were probably with host Shizuku as well, but Shizuku ended up as a host for Rin, before later being discarded. Nene and the other members of Wonderland's Showtime were probably ambushed. Host Ichika was discarded and was replaced by Tsukasa becoming host Tsukasa, and Nene and Rui had to escape, and Nene was probably traumatized by that incident, and potentially also infested by a chrysalis. And Rui ended up with his jaw removed, but luckily he was found by Kanade and Akito, who tried to reattach it. But speaking of Kanade, for all that, she tried to confront Mafiu, whom she wanted to help, but Mafiu already became a host to Luca. Luckily, Kanade was able to escape, but ended up having a chrysalis inserted into her neck. But luckily, she was found by Akito, who helped her. Then they found Rui, and probably Nene as well. So now they're probably all a group. And Emu, Minori, Haruka, and Kohane, we don't know what happened to them. However, they were all confirmed dead by the series creator. It was also mentioned that Emu was apparently split in half, which is pretty brutal. And we know that Mizuki was probably had a chrysalis inserted to her neck, which became Kaido. And some time down the line, Mako probably also infested Anne. And that's kind of all I have so far. So now we have our few groups. We have, of course, the parasites, along with their hosts, those being Anne, Mafiu, Tsukasa, and our current survivors for our groups are Saki, Honami, and Eri, Akito, Nene, Rui, and Kanade. And that's it. Everyone else is basically dead. Oh yeah, and sometime down the line, host Tsukasa had all of his body parts eaten off except for his torso, which Miku is now using. And that's the series. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed. Feel free to make sure to like, subscribe, and do check out the original series on TikTok if you have a TikTok account. The creator also has a Discord if you could get on there. So the creator of their name is Leo on TikTok, and I gotta say, if you're watching, Leo, really well done. I love your series. I hope I get to see more of it, but since I don't have Discord, I think this is the end of the road for me. But that's okay. I'm pretty satisfied with what I got so far. Thank you guys so much for watching. My throat is killing me now, and I hope you have a good one. Peace out, y'all.